So what I'd love to do with you now is just walk you through a quick storytelling technique. And that's partly because the research that's been done on the impact of stories and how memorable they are is pretty significant. In fact, a study that was done a few years back by Stanford University found that stories, when they're told well, are 22 times more memorable than a fact is, which is quite a lot. There's ways of weaving facts in, there's ways of using facts well, but stories at their core have the components that actually just like Velcro to our brain. So I'll teach you a quick technique which is called the hero's journey. And it's a technique, or it's a tool that a lot of Hollywood movies are based around. So if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, or I'm trying to think of a film that everybody would have seen, sometimes people have seen neither, and that's always slightly terrifying. So we'll go with Star Wars, if anybody hasn't seen the other two. And so basically, in the hero's journey, or the way it works is that at the beginning, the scene is always set. So basically, at the start of a story, you get to know the characters quite well. So in Harry Potter, that might be that you figure out Harry lives under the stairs at Privet Drive. His life isn't that good. Or if you're looking at the Hobbits, then we find out the characters live in the Shire, and they actually have quite a nice life. It's not that their life is a disaster at the beginning. And then there's normally this moment in the film or in a story which is called the call to action, where the characters are asked to go on an adventure. So Dumbledore comes in and says, or not Dumbledore, Hagrid comes in and says, you should come to Hogwarts, or Gandalf comes in and says, let's return the ring to Mordor. Whatever it is, they're asked to go on the adventure. They normally say yes, otherwise the story just ends there. The characters go on the adventure, they have a few highs at the beginning, stuff looks like it's going quite well, and then there's normally this crashing back down to earth moment, where the characters end up in what Hollywood describes as the pit of despair. So it's where the hobbits get taken to Isengard, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, or I've actually not watched many of the Star Wars films, so if you're a Star Wars film, it's the bit where Darth Vader comes in, or everything feels like it's going wrong. And it's usually in that moment where a wise mentor figure comes in and gives the characters something they need to get out of the pit. So it's your Dumbledore, your Gandalf. Morgan Freeman plays quite a lot of wise mentor figure characters. And they give them either something metaphorical or physical so that they can go on their journey, get out of that pit moment. And then they finally have this climaxing scene where they defeat the dragon and everything ends happily ever after. This is for most Hollywood stories. If you're thinking about a French film, then it will look very different. You kind of start at the end at the beginning, everyone smokes and pouts. But normally most Hollywood movies are much more like this. And the reason I'm talking you through that technique is because in a moment, what I'd like you to do is have a think about what your own story is. As a founder, if you are a founder, or if you work within a company in a different role, what the question I would like you to ask, whatever your situation is how did I get here? And that might end up you might end up coming with a slightly philosophical answer, or it could be quite a straight story. But what I'll do is just give you a quick example of why I do what I do, what my story is of how I've got here. And as I'm doing it, just listen out for any techniques I'm using, anything that's particularly memorable, because I'll hear back from you guys in a second. And then I'm gonna get you to have a think about what your own story looks like. I think in this space where virtual pitching is becoming the new norm, what I found from the people I've been coaching is that being able to tell a story well is one of the best things at your disposal, because people in these calls that you might be having, you'll notice that they're often quite short. People say, can we jump on a quick call? And you have to get information out very quickly. And the danger that you might make is assuming that your audience are listening to you. And what I'd say is that you need to find tools or ways of fighting for your audience's attention. And stories are a really, really good way of doing that. So I'm just going to put a quick timer on. So the story should be around 2.5 minutes long. Just listen out as I'm saying this. And then I'd love to hear some thoughts and feedback from you guys as to what you remembered, what really stuck out for you. So by the age of 18, I miraculously got into drama school. And on my very first day, my drama teacher pulled me to the side and she said, your voice is so quiet, we actually can't hear you when you speak. And so she got me to do this very weird exercise where she had me lying down on my belly on our grey plasticky drama room studio floor. And she sat on my back with her knees either side of my rib cage, pushing down on my back and shouting at me, breathe, Ginny, breathe. And what she was trying to do was get me to take a breath, a big enough breath, so that when I spoke, my voice would come across really loud and really clear. And what happened was exactly that. I heard my voice loud and clear like I hadn't done in years. And in that moment, it unlocked for me this desire to help other people work out how they could use their voice well as well. So when I left university and I left drama school, I ended up working with an organisation helping guys who'd just come out of prison to work out how to communicate well so they could get back into work or education. And after a number of years of doing that, I decided I wanted to get into corporate coaching. So I met a guy called Stu who ran a company called Amplify. One day he was coaching a bunch of cybersecurity companies in this big auditorium in London, and he said, can you just give them some feedback? I was just supposed to be shadowing him today, but he said, give them some feedback. And so the next half an hour, I just gave a few people some feedback, despite not knowing quite what they were saying. It was more on how they delivered their message. And over lunch, he turned to me and said, the way you give feedback is gold. So I want you to come on board and work with me at my company, Amplify. So for the last 4 years, that's exactly what I've been doing, working with companies all around the world, like Microsoft and Google, on how they tell their story well. And that's it.